Hello, everybody. My name is Amy Ghaemmaghami. I am an LPC counselor working at Outpatient Behavioral Health. Today, I'm presenting to you Navigating Post-Pandemic Life, 5 easy tips you can use to reduce anxiety in your post-pandemic life. So, we're going to look at 5 tips, and there's a bonus at the end if you stick around. So, we'll just get started here. First of all, I want to just welcome you again. It's been a rough 18 months, and those of you who are working here at Augusta Health with us in outpatient behavioral health, you know that it has been quite a challenge. And one thing that we're learning is that the disruptions in everyday life also happened to the people who had to work at the hospital and their families. So what we're finding out now is that people who've lived through 14, 18 months of pandemic life have all endured grief, loss, anxiety, isolation, and rolling trauma. There's a lot of research now that's starting to be done about the trauma COVID. And so when we're thinking about ourselves and our families, we have to have that self-awareness that not everybody recovers and rebuilds at the same rate. And so right now, some of us are going to recover uneventfully from this period, but others will, after the adrenaline fades, being a heroic helper, there are going to be some quiet moments that might feel anxiety provoking because you are so used to doing the hard work every day. And as hard as the initial trauma is, it's the aftermath that can be very hard. So again, we want to start talking about ways that we can reduce our anxiety and move forward. And I'm just so glad that you've tuned in. So here's our friend Johnny Depp. He who falls behind gets left behind. This is one of the big worries in the pandemic era, is once the pandemic's over, will you miss out? So we've missed out on a lot of things that we've all enjoyed in the past, and now there's this rush to do everything. So you don't have to do everything. The pirate code is more of a guideline. So let's talk about take your time to rebuild and recover. Some of you who had fear of missing out before the pandemic, you might have felt great during the pandemic because you couldn't do everything. There was no competition. People were not doing stuff. So now, if you're somebody who suffered from that before, it may come back. But you can take your time doing that. You can use your wise mind skills. We do dialectical behavior therapy at the outpatient clinic. And wise mind is just a combination of using your emotion mind and your rational mind and coming to a middle, coming to the balance in that. So think about balance as you choose your activities and choose your time management. All the things that we didn't get to do during COVID, graduations, memorials, anniversaries, now these things are coming back, but you can pick and choose. You can do that safely, but don't deprive yourself of these things. But don't succumb to the pressure that now you've got to do everything all at once. You have time. Your children are going back to school. You yourself might be going back to school. Again, some people, one of the benefits to the pandemic was all the teleeducation. For others, that was very difficult. So it's about knowing yourself, knowing your child, giving your child the tools they need. The teachers are very, very good. and they are planning to, ease your children back into the day-to-day grind. But we can all acknowledge that some of us who were able to work from home, or children who did school remotely, it's going to be a change. It's going to be a change, but you have the coping skills to handle it. Give yourself time. Your relationship with work may change if you were a remote worker. Or, as I said in the introduction, if you were someone who was a frontline worker, it's going to start feeling a lot different as we get back to the normal routines. And you may miss that adrenaline rush, or you may wonder why you're tired when before you weren't tired. Everybody's different, so be kind and gentle with yourself. And I already talked about the pirate code. It's more of a guideline. You get to be the one who decides how you recover and rebuild. Julia Samuels is a psychologist and researcher, and she's come up with 8 pillars of strength to help people cope with trauma. So in times of traumatic change, we can rely on these pillars, ways and habits of being that hold us together and help us to manage our anxiety. It's very difficult to manage our emotions if we're in a heightened state of fear about the future. So we want to do the things that help us to release some of that anxiety, help us ground ourselves in the present. So Ms. Samuels' 8 pillars, Dr. Samuels, she says our relationships with others. So some people during the pandemic got closer to their families because they reached out by text, by Facebook, by phone. Other people, we all know ourselves, sometimes we have friends who are just more fun and to be with in person. We like to do things. So again, take your time to resume your relationships, make plans, but don't feel pressured to do that. Touchstones and memories are very important. So, for instance, if you have lost someone during COVID, and the estimate now is that for every person who passes away, with or without COVID, there are about 9 close relatives or friends who are bereaved. So looking at getting towards 600,000 deaths, and it may be more now, but 600,000 COVID deaths, that's more than 1 million people, more than 5 million people, more than 5 billion people who have been touched by grief. This is important. So it's important to remember your history, remember your memories of that person. The third pillar is that the mind and body are interconnected, and we'll talk more about using our bodies wisely. But your mind and body are interconnected, and your mind and body both hold memories of trauma. So things that you experienced during COVID, they're important, and you may be holding on to some of those things. And a way to decrease your anxiety regarding mind and body is to mindfulness practices, which help us get into our body and out of our mind, but also things like therapy, journaling, your spiritual development can help you settle the mind as well. Fourth pillar is relationship to time. Relationship to time is important because we now have a sense of maybe before and after COVID. I've heard people say COVID time. And so your relationship to time, you have to remember it kind of was fluid during COVID. But as we come out of COVID, you're starting to think more future-oriented thoughts, and that's okay. Your relationship with yourself, obviously, it's very important, and having a healthy relationship with self can reduce your anxiety. Think about some more ways to do that later in the presentation. Ways to manage emotions. It's the 6th pillar, and one of the things we say in dialectical behavior therapy is that sometimes we have to allow emotions to just be emotions, feelings just to be feelings. You don't have to do anything about this. So learning what triggers your emotion, learning what emotions feel like in your body, and learning healthy distractions to help you get through those emotional moments. Structure and focus is the seventh pillar, and that's very important. That's on the daily. What does your day look like? And now that we're, again, people who were maybe working remotely, or a lot of our staff had worked overtime and extra, now we're restructuring to more normal levels of work. And then what do you focus on? What do you spend time on now that things are less of an emergency? But think about your structure at home. Think about your structure on your days off or the weekends. And how are you helping your children to learn to structure their days and their weekends? And this may be new for you to think about, because during COVID, your choices on structure were very limited. And then the eighth pillar is gratitude. And what can we say every day that we did well? What can we say that we are thankful for? What are the many things that went right in your day today, Children's Day? And this is a nice gratitude practice, can be done in all different ways. We like to talk about doing gratitude journals, but you can also do prayers. You can also do saying grace at the table, wherever you can practice gratitude. Building that in intentionally will help you to rebuild and recover. So again, thinking about connection. Sue Johnson, the founder of Emotional Focus Therapy, she says in times of traumatic change, we have a powerful drive to connect. So think about some ways you can create new relationships, repair old relationships, set boundaries where you need to, and the goal is to have healthy relationships because we all need connection. So if your relationships are creating anxiety for you, maybe now you can spend some time doing that as part of your healing and recovery. So tip number one, really take your time. Now, on to tip number two. New information has come to light, man, says the dude from The Big Lebowski. So we've learned a lot during COVID. Want to do is stay informed. So read your Augusta Health emails, attend town halls when you can, talk to each other, talk to your team leader, just keep informed of protocols. There's so much out in the media about masking or not masking and politics. But remember just to stay informed at the workplace. Find out what's going on with your child's schools, and help your children understand the importance of vaccination and validating school policies, and help them to be informed themselves. Yeah, we're washing hands. Yeah, we use hand sanitizer. Keeping informed, but also taking those positive, healthy actions. We're still learning about the COVID variants, but we can continue to practice social distancing, masking, and hand hygiene. Our third tip, helping others. And here's Will Ferrell playing Elf. I like helping others. Helping others is my favorite. So research has shown that we can decrease our anxiety by helping others. So think about, how can you help others at work, at school, at home? Think about people you may have reached out to during COVID. Don't just stop talking to those people. Do they still need your attention? Perhaps they do. Perhaps you've built new relationships with people through your church. want to continue those relationships because that helps normalize and restore and rebuild your life. Neuroscience shows that our brains release endorphins when we help others. It's called a helper's high. So you are not only helping others, you're helping your brain. And we want to help our brains because a healthy brain helps us cope. And fourth tip, you may not be able to dance like Simone Biles, but you will end up with a good workout. So our fourth tip is move your body. And if you've seen this dance that Simone Biles did, it's amazing. Get moving. You can go back to the gym. You can go to our gym here at Lifetime Fitness. You can do other wonderful things with personal trainers, yoga, dance, martial arts studios. You can resume your favorite sport, try a new sport, join a rec league, walk. And walking along with mindfulness practice can be a great way to get moving. You can do what's called an awe walk, AWE, and you walk even just around the campus of the hospital, but see it in a new way with new eyes. Be mindful of not just the buildings, but the weather, the people, the traffic. Be mindful of your own breath as you walk. Walking is great. So your doctor, please, if you want to begin a weight loss or new exercise program. And again, I refer you back to tip 1. Do these things on your own time. Don't feel pressured about it. Feel like it's an opportunity now. Nature, hiking, camping, boating, sailing, all of these things can help us relax, reduce our anxiety. Nature can be very mindful. Gardening is great exercise. You get not only the exercise portion, but you get that connection with nature. So you don't have to go up on the Blue Ridge Parkway. You can just garden in your backyard. You can have an herb garden in your house. But that activity of moving, taking care, can be great. Playing with your kids or your grandkids and encouraging your kids to get moving too. In this month's Harvard Health newsletter blog, I said engaging in exercise diverts you from the very thing you are anxious about. Moving your body decreases muscle tension, lowers the body's contributions to feeling anxious. So we know now with neuroscience that getting your heart rate up changes not only your physical feelings, but your brain chemistry. What happens is you increase the anti-anxiety neurochemicals in your brain. Exercise activates the frontal regions of the brain, which help to regulate our reactions to real or imagined threats to our survival. So regular exercise can build resilience and can decrease anxiety. It's also a depression buster. And finally, our fifth tip, practice mindfulness. So here we have the sloth meditating. Come on, inner peace, I don't have all day. Well, we do have time for 5, 10, 20 minutes of meditation if you build it in. And it can be very, very fulfilling. People get scared of meditation like it's a religion. It is not a religion. It's a breathing practice. It's a mental practice of releasing your thoughts, developing inner awareness. Do it. So mindfulness really means being present for your own life, staying in the present moment, keeping your attention to today. So what do I need today to keep me grounded, to keep me connected, to stabilize my emotions? So when John Kabat-Zinn first began studying mindfulness in the 1980s. He did mindfulness meditation experiments with disabled people or people with chronic pain. Was not that it took the pain away, but the people who practiced the mindfulness skills felt like they could manage their pain. They were aware of it without it making them angry or causing them negative emotions. They learned to be in with their pain. And that is really something that can help us decrease anxiety instead of worried about pain. It's being aware of it. And what John Kabat-Zinn said was, as long as you're breathing, you're moving. So here are 4 ways to keep your attention on today. One is having structure in your day. Structure your day with good intentions. Practicing self-soothing, healthy distractions, not self-harm, but things that are healthy activities and healthy for your body. And then taking a time for joy, and that is just noticing the good things. Again, this is gratitude. A time for joy, a time to really appreciate. And we're coming out of COVID, some opportunities awaiting us. And mindfulness meditations. We are practitioners of mindfulness here at the Outpatient Behavioral Health, and we do several kinds of meditations. Loving kindness is one, and you can easily find a loving kindness meditation on the internet. You can go to UCLA meditations. You can go to University of San Diego, California meditations, and those are free. We like here at Outpatient the 5 senses meditation. You can do this anytime. It's so easy. Just go through your 5 senses and you do some deep breathing. So you think about visualization, relaxing place. Think of all the sounds that you would hear in that relaxing place. Think of all the odors and smells that might be associated with that relaxing place. Think of the tastes that might be associated. And think of the touch. And so just to do a quick 5 senses meditation, you don't have to do it alone, but just as an outline, I think of visualizing a scene at the beach where you see the horizon, you see the waves, you see the sand, you see the beautiful colors of the clouds. Then you would move into smelling the ocean salt, then move into hearing the sounds of the waves, to tasting whatever you love to eat when you're at the beach, grilled food, street food. And then finally touch. You might think about sand beneath your feet or between your toes, or the temperature of the water, or the wind, or the hot sun. And you can do this and be able to transport yourself very quickly. Practice doing that. Deep breathing, of course, always works. 10 deep breaths will lower your heart rate. And then the body scan. And this is very easy. You can do that in 5 minutes, or you can lay down and take 20 minutes, but you just move attention of your feet to the top of your head and all the muscles in between your joints. Just check in with your body. Doing a body scan every day can get you that body grounding. So those are just some of the meditative mindfulness practices, and I encourage everybody to look at those. It's a non-intervention and really can decrease anxiety. So I promised you a bonus, and our bonus tip is love yourself. And here's the rock. Need to say more. The bonus tip is self-compassion. So the greater the losses after a trauma, and if we think about COVID times as traumatizing, then the longer it went on, the greater time it takes to heal, recover, and rebuild. So we must have self-compassion as we do this. Letting go of the pain of trauma is difficult because holding on to our suffering gives us a sense of power. How is that? How does that work? Well, our identity becomes defined by this period, and it's hard to let that go. We do have to move on. Life has changed. When we are in a traumatic situation, our window of tolerance for others and ourselves, it gets damaged. And it takes time to rebuild that resilience. It takes time to rebuild trust of other people. But again, we don't want to stay stuck. We want to acknowledge our anxiety about the future. And then we want to help ourselves through these healthy ways to find a better future. So one self-compassion exercise you can do is treat yourself as you would your best friend. And think about, how would your best friend speak to you, talk to you, help you with a problem? Does your best friend demonstrate that openness and listening? So think about that for a moment. And then think about, how can you do that for yourself? Did you notice a difference when you talk to yourself the way your best friend talks to you? You might want to even write this down. How things might change when you responded to yourself in the same way you would typically respond to a close friend. You might say to yourself then, this is what suffering feels like. Others also feel this way sometimes. I am only human. And then next time you're struggling with something, treating yourself like a good friend might be a way to get through it. And you can finish this exercise by putting your hand over your heart and feel your own heart beating. Say to yourself, are enough. Have compassion for yourself. It's been a long 18 months and you have new challenges ahead, but you're up to it.